hypothesis. All right, let's talk about self-presentation, including topics such as social roles, social norms, scripts, as well as Philip Zimbardo and the Stanford prison experiment. So when it comes to one's social role, this is a pattern of behavior that is expected of a person in a given setting or group, such as we all have different roles and different hats that we put on in certain situations. So right now, if you're a student in my class, you have your student hat on, and there are certain expectations that you have as a student, but you have different expectations if you're a father, or if you're a teacher, if you are a fast food worker, whatever the case is. We all have identity roles that we attribute our life to, and we act in a way that is expected of us in that given situation. So I'm not going to interact with my students in a classroom because I've got my teacher hat on the same way that I would interact with my friends, right? So in that role, I'm a friend. In the classroom, I'm a teacher. So I'm going to act in a way that's expected of me as a result of that. Okay, so social norms. So a group's expectation of what is appropriate and acceptable behavior for its members. So if you ascribe to or establish yourself to a particular group or setting, there are going to be situations where, or there's going to be expectations that are expected of you. I hate to use those two words back to back, but there are going to be some things that are expected of you for what's appropriate behavior. So when you're in that group, how are you supposed to behave and think? What are we expected to talk about? What are we expected to wear? So this can be in your specific friend group. This can be in church. This can be in a number of different settings in which you ascribe to a group, and a fan of a particular team, things like that. So whenever it comes to a script, this is a person's knowledge about the sequence of events expected in a specific setting. So when it comes to this, whenever you go to a fast food restaurant versus a nicer restaurant, you know the difference between the two because of your schemas that you've been able to pick up. You have a social script that you can go back into your file and cabinet, pull out and be like, oh, okay, when I go to a fast food restaurant, I order at the counter, right? And then whenever you're at a nicer restaurant, if you were to go up to them and start ordering at the hostess table, they would look at you like you're crazy, right? And so I know that's very elementary and simple, but it's a good way to introduce you into how scripts are, and how if we don't have particular scripts or understandings of how we're supposed to operate in specific social settings, then we just are going around acting whatever way, and it's not appropriate. There's no organization that works, right? Okay, so we're going to talk about the Philip Zimbardo experiment known as the Stanford prison experiment in 1971. So this experiment is considered pretty unethical for obvious reasons, but it did give us a good bit of insight into into social norms as well as scripts. So, to give you a little bit of background, whenever it comes to the Stanford prison experiment, this happened at Stanford University in the basement of the psychology department. They recruited males who were randomly assigned to either the role of a prisoner or a guard. Okay, and so whenever they were assigned, the experiment was supposed to go on for at least 2 weeks, but because things became so abusive and things got out of control, the prisoners were acting out erratically. They experienced mental breakdowns as a result of the torment from the guards, and so the experiment only lasted 6 days. And I think that is wise for the experimenter, Dr. Zimbardo, to just call it quits on the experiment. He should have had maybe, and this is of course being a armchair quarterback in this situation, but I think a little bit of foresight could have told you what would have happened in this experiment. And there's a video. You probably can't click on it through this YouTube video, but if you just type in on YouTube Stanford prison experiment, there's actual footage of this study that you can go back and look for yourself. There's also dramatizations, movies that have been made about the Stanford Prison Experiment, I think, for free online. So if you want to see a dramatized version of it, take it with a grain of salt because it's not exactly like the experiment was. They get pretty close, but it's dramatized into a movie for a reason to make it more theatrical. So I want you to go into it with a grain of salt. If you want to see the actual footage, you can do so, but as well as if you want a dramatized version of it, you can watch the movie online. Okay, moving forward